You ever notice how sarcasm cuts deeper when it's dressed like a joke? You're sitting there, smile on your face, and someone drops a line that sounds playful, but something inside you shifts. It's subtle, it's sharp. It's meant to make you question yourself without ever starting a fight. And in that moment, your instincts say, clap back, defend yourself, prove them wrong. But what if real strength isn't about defending your worth, but resting in it? See, people use sarcasm like a shield. It's their way of disguising insecurity with humor. It's emotional camouflage. But when you understand that, you stop personalizing their tone. You start seeing through it. You realize this isn't about me. This is about them trying to manage how small they feel by making me feel smaller. And once that truth clicks, you no longer react from pain, you respond from peace. Here's the truth most people miss: detachment is not coldness. It's clarity. It's the quiet awareness that says, I don't need to match your energy to protect mine. When someone throws a sarcastic comment your way, the instinct is to fight fire with fire. But remember this, no one can drag you into emotional mud unless you choose to step in. Sometimes the most powerful response is none at all. You pause, you breathe, you give that silence a weight it's never had before. Because that silence says, I see what you're doing, but I refuse to dance with it. And when you answer, you do it with stillness, measured, intentional, calm. Maybe you say, that's an interesting comment, and you leave it there. No spark, no scene, just presence. Because the goal isn't to win a verbal battle. The goal is to keep your peace intact. When you rise above sarcasm, you're not just avoiding conflict, you're practicing self-respect in its highest form. You're declaring, my peace is sacred, my purpose is greater than your projection. And the more you live from that space, the more untouchable you become. Because power doesn't shout, power doesn't clap back, power looks someone in the eye and chooses peace anyway. Understand this, people who rely on sarcasm to communicate are wrestling with unspoken pain. Their words are symptoms of wounds they haven't faced. And you don't have to carry that burden. Your job is to stand rooted, not reactive. To be light in a room that tests your calm. To let your peace preach louder than their pettiness ever could. Detachment doesn't make you distant. It makes you divine. It's the art of seeing beyond the words, beyond the tone, into the heart of what's really happening. It's when your spirit whispers, I don't need to respond. I just need to remember who I am. Because when you know who you are, you no longer need to explain it to anyone. And maybe that's the real power here. Not shutting someone down, but shutting down the part of you that feels the need to defend what's already been divinely secured. When you master that, no sarcasm, no backhanded comment, no hidden jab can ever touch you again. Sarcasm and backhanded comments are often reflections of the emotional instability and insecurity residing within the person who delivers them. When someone feels threatened, unseen, or inadequate, they mask that discomfort behind humor that cuts rather than uplifts. The tone, the smirk, the casual delivery, it's all designed to disguise pain as confidence. But if you look closely, it's not strength speaking. It's fear wearing confidence like a costume. And when you understand this, their words lose their power over you because you stop seeing an attack, you see a confession. Every sarcastic remark is a subtle admission, I'm hurting, and I don't know how to express it. Most people internalize sarcasm as truth. They take those jabs personally, replay them, and wonder what's wrong with them. But the moment you shift perspective and realize that sarcasm reveals the speaker's inner state, not yours, everything changes. You begin to see their tone for what it really is, a mirror of their emotional world, not a verdict on your worth. The human mind projects its inner reality outward. So when someone constantly uses sarcasm, they're revealing unresolved tension, not your shortcomings. When you operate from a grounded sense of identity, sarcasm can't wound you, it just passes through. You hear the words, you recognize the insecurity behind them, and instead of reacting, you observe. That's emotional intelligence in motion. That's spiritual maturity. It's not about pretending it doesn't bother you. It's about knowing the truth behind why it happened in the first place. Because people who are truly confident don't need to disguise insults as humor. They communicate directly, kindly, and clearly. Sarcasm thrives in people who don't feel safe being honest. So when someone uses sarcasm to chip away at your confidence, let that be a signal, not to fight, but to discern. Ask yourself, what's hurting in them that needs to make me small? That simple question transforms irritation into empathy, frustration into awareness. And with that awareness, you take your power back. You're no longer reacting to their insecurity. You're witnessing it with compassion. In the end, sarcasm is a cry for acknowledgement disguised as wit. When you stop personalizing it, you rise above it. You hold your peace, you stand in quiet confidence, knowing their words say everything about where they are and nothing about who you are. Emotional detachment is one of the most misunderstood forms of strength. People often confuse it with coldness, but it's not about shutting people out. It's about keeping your peace protected. Detachment doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care without being consumed. It's the ability to stand in a storm without letting the wind move your spirit. When you reach that level of clarity, the noise around you loses its power. You no longer feel compelled to react to every tone, every insult, every subtle attempt to provoke you. Because your sense of identity doesn't live in how others treat you. It lives in who you've become when no one's watching. True detachment begins when you realize that your emotions are not meant to be controlled by other people's behavior. You can acknowledge their words, feel the sting for a moment, and still choose peace over reaction. That's not suppression. It's mastery. It's saying, I see what's happening, but I refuse to let it dictate my energy. There's a quiet kind of confidence in that, a sacred knowing that not everything deserves access to your emotional space. The moment you start practicing detachment, you start claiming your freedom. It's not that you stop feeling, it's that you stop attaching meaning to everything that's said. Someone's sarcasm, criticism, or backhanded remark becomes just data, information about where they are mentally and emotionally. You observe it, you understand it, but you don't absorb it. That separation between awareness and attachment is where peace begins to grow. It's where you stop bleeding from wounds that aren't yours. Detachment also teaches you to respond with grace rather than reaction, because when your emotions are stable, your responses become intentional. You no longer speak to prove, defend, or retaliate. You speak to express truth with calmness. That calmness isn't weakness, it's spiritual authority. It's knowing that your worth is too valuable to be shaken by shallow words. You understand that chaos loses its strength when it can't get a reaction out of you. In that stillness, you find power. You find yourself grounded, aware, unbothered. You no longer seek to control the outer world. You master your inner one. That's what emotional detachment truly is. The divine art of keeping your heart soft, your mind clear, and your spirit untouchable. You don't have to attend every invitation to chaos that's handed to you. Life will constantly offer you moments to lose your composure through sarcasm, criticism, or unnecessary drama, but wisdom is knowing that not every comment deserves your presence. When someone tries to pull you into their storm, it's often because they've lost control of their own. They want company in their chaos. And if you're not careful, you'll spend your energy trying to prove a point in a conversation that was never meant to bring peace, only reaction. The truth is, you can't control how others speak to you, but you can always control whether you engage. Every emotional trap begins with an invitation, an offhand remark, a passive, aggressive tone, a subtle insult masked as humor. The moment you take that bait, you hand over your peace. But when you pause and choose not to respond, you break the pattern. You reclaim power. Silence in those moments isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's saying, I see your energy and I choose not to match it. Because maturity isn't measured by how loud you can argue. It's measured by how calmly you can walk away. There's a quiet kind of freedom in not needing to prove yourself. People who constantly provoke others thrive on reaction. It fuels their ego. It validates their sense of control. When you refuse to engage, you deny them that satisfaction. You show that your peace is not for sale, that your worth doesn't need defending. Some arguments simply don't deserve your presence because your presence has value. Every time you choose calm over conflict, you teach people how to treat you without saying a word. Walking away doesn't mean you've lost. It means you've learned. You've learned that your time, energy, and peace are sacred spaces not everyone deserves access to. And when you start treating them that way, life starts aligning differently. The noise fades. The tension dissolves. The chaos that once pulled you and starts to lose its grip. Because peace isn't found in controlling others. It's found in mastering your response to them. So when someone throws you an invitation to chaos, remember, decline it with silence, dignity, and grace. That's where your power truly lies. Silence is often misunderstood as weakness, but in reality, it's one of the most profound demonstrations of self-respect. When you choose silence in the face of sarcasm or disrespect, you're making a powerful statement without uttering a single word. It says, I value my peace too much to lower myself to this level. Silence carries a sacred weight because it's rooted in control over your emotions, your energy, and your response. It's not about avoiding confrontation. It's about choosing not to feed chaos with your attention. In a world that glorifies reaction, stillness becomes your rebellion. When someone throws a backhanded comment your way, what they truly want is a reaction. They want to see if they can shake you, make you stumble, or get under your skin. That's how they affirm their own sense of power. But when you meet that energy with silence, you starve it, you strip it of its fuel. You send a message that you're not available for emotional manipulation. Silence becomes your armor. It protects your dignity and commands respect. People quickly learn that provoking you doesn't work when you no longer give them what they seek, your reaction. There's a sacred stillness that lives within those who understand silence. It's the awareness that not everything needs to be answered, not every attack needs to be confronted, and not every moment requires your voice. Sometimes your calm presence speaks louder than any comeback ever could, because silence, when used with wisdom, creates reflection. It forces the other person to sit in their own words, to feel the weight of their tone without your participation. That's how real accountability begins, not through arguments, but through absence. Silence also creates space for discernment. In that quiet moment, you gather yourself. You see the situation clearly. You respond from peace, not pride. And even if you choose to speak later, it comes from intention, not impulse. That's the difference between power and reaction. One is grounded, the other is grasping. So when you feel the pull to defend yourself, pause, breathe. Remember that silence is not surrender, it's strength under control. It's the gentle reminder that your peace is too sacred to be disturbed by noise that doesn't align with your worth. Responding with calm authority is one of the most powerful ways to disarm immaturity without ever lowering yourself. When someone throws sarcasm or a backhanded comment your way, they're often testing your composure, waiting to see if they can provoke a reaction. Their goal is not communication, it's control. But calmness shifts that balance. It says, you don't dictate my tone, my energy, or my peace. Authority doesn't have to be loud. It's the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you don't need to prove your strength. You embody it. When your response is measured, grounded, and steady, it exposes the other person's immaturity far more effectively than anger ever could. Calm authority is born from self-awareness. It's the moment you recognize that reacting emotionally only validates the other person's attempt to pull you down. Instead, you choose clarity over chaos. You speak slowly, intentionally, with words that carry weight because they come from peace, not pride. When your tone remains even, your posture relaxed, and your eyes steady, it unsettles those who rely on emotional volatility to gain control. They expect confrontation, but you give them composure, and that shift of energy changes everything. When you respond calmly, you teach people how to engage with you. You show them that emotional manipulation has no effect here. And that's how you earn respect, not by demanding it, but by embodying it. You create an atmosphere of maturity where pettiness can't survive. Your calmness becomes a mirror, reflecting their immaturity back to them. They see how small their words look against the backdrop of your self-control. That realization often does more than any lecture ever could. This kind of authority isn't arrogance, it's spiritual steadiness. It's rooted in the understanding that peace is power. Because when you control your emotions, you control the direction of the conversation. You set the tone, you lead without needing to dominate. The person who stays calm in the storm always has the advantage, not because they're louder, but because they're anchored. That's what true maturity looks like, responding with grace even when grace isn't given. And in that quiet, composed response, you send a message louder than any words could ever express, that your peace is your power, and no one's immaturity will ever be enough to shake it. Your energy is currency. What you give attention to, you empower. Every thought, reaction, and emotion is a form of exchange, and the moment you invest it in negativity, sarcasm, or unnecessary conflict, you lose a piece of that inner wealth. Protecting your energy isn't selfish, it's sacred stewardship. Because not every conversation deserves your engagement, not every person deserves access to your calm, and not every situation deserves a reaction. When you begin to treat your energy like the precious resource it is, you start living with greater intention. You stop wasting your strength trying to prove your worth to people who have already decided not to see it. Every sarcastic remark or backhanded comment is a bid for your energy. The person speaking may not even realize it, but what they're looking for is validation, proof that they can influence your emotions. And when you react, you give them what they want, access to your power. But when you stay grounded, when you respond with stillness instead of struggle, you keep your energy intact. That's when you start to notice the shift. You no longer feel drained by drama because you're not funding it anymore. You're investing your energy where it grows, into peace, purpose, and clarity. This kind of discernment comes from emotional maturity. You start asking yourself before reacting, is this worth my peace? And most times the answer is no. You learn that walking away isn't weakness, it's wisdom, because your energy is meant to build, not burn. It's meant to nurture your growth, not defend your ego. Every moment you choose not to engage in chaos, you're preserving strength for what truly matters, your goals, your healing, your calling. When you treat your energy as sacred, you start to notice who and what drains it. You recognize patterns, people, and situations that thrive on reaction, and instead of trying to fix or fight them, you simply disengage. You stop explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. You stop proving yourself to those who don't see your value. You become selective, not out of pride, but out of purpose. Because your peace is too valuable to spend on anything that doesn't multiply it. Protecting your energy is not withdrawal, it's alignment. It's choosing to stay centered in your power, no matter how loud the world becomes. People project what they refuse to heal. Every sarcastic remark, every backhanded comment, every subtle attempt to belittle someone else is often a mirror reflecting the speaker's own unhealed pain. What we suppress within ourselves eventually leaks out through our words, tone, and behavior. When someone mocks you, criticizes you, or tries to make you feel small, it's rarely about you. It's about the unresolved wounds they're carrying. They're trying to relieve their own discomfort by transferring it to someone else. It's emotional displacement, a subconscious way of saying, I can't carry this pain, so I'll hand it to you. And the moment you recognize this truth, you stop taking their words personally. When people refuse to confront their insecurities, they build defense mechanisms that look like confidence but feel like cruelty. Sarcasm becomes their shield, humor becomes their disguise, and control becomes their coping strategy. But deep down, it's fear that's driving it all. Fear of rejection, fear of inadequacy, fear of being seen as less than enough. They attack what they don't understand, and they ridicule what they secretly envy. Once you see this dynamic, compassion replaces anger. You stop reacting and start observing. You realize that their behavior is not a reflection of your worth, but of their wounds. Responding with grace doesn't mean excusing their behavior. It means understanding its origin. You can acknowledge their words without absorbing their energy. You can set boundaries without bitterness. Because reacting with the same energy only mirrors their pain back to them and traps you both in a cycle of hurt. But when you respond with calm awareness, you break that cycle. You become the mirror that reflects truth instead of trauma. This understanding brings liberation. You no longer waste emotional energy trying to change or fix people who haven't yet chosen to heal. You simply release them with peace, knowing their journey is theirs to walk. And as you do, your own peace deepens. Because when you stop taking projection personally, you stop living as a reaction to other people's pain. You begin living from purpose instead of defense. And that shift from reacting to observing, from absorbing to releasing, is the true mark of emotional and spiritual maturity. The real victory isn't in winning the argument, it's in keeping your self-control. When someone uses sarcasm or backhanded comments to provoke you, their intention is often to pull you into an emotional contest. They want to prove dominance, to see if they can shake your peace or trigger your pride. But when you respond calmly, when you refuse to lose your composure, you win a battle they never expected to lose. Because real power doesn't exist in proving who's right. It exists in maintaining who you are. You don't win by shouting louder, you win by staying centered when everything around you tries to pull you off balance. Self-control is the language of maturity. It's what separates those who react from those who lead. When you master it, you stop being controlled by emotions, and instead, your emotions start serving you. The person who keeps their composure holds the highest authority in any interaction because their peace becomes unshakable. People sense it. They see it in your tone, your posture, your silence. And in that stillness, they realize they've lost control of the moment because they can no longer dictate how you feel. That's what true strength looks like, not noise, but discipline. When you argue to win, you enter a power struggle that leaves everyone drained. But when you choose self-control, you create space for truth to rise naturally. You no longer speak to dominate, you speak to bring clarity. And sometimes clarity doesn't even require words, it requires presence. Because the person who stays grounded under pressure sends a message louder than any retort ever could. I know who I am, and nothing you say can make me forget that. Choosing self-control doesn't mean suppressing your feelings. It means directing them with wisdom. You allow yourself to feel anger, but you don't let it speak for you. You feel disappointment, but you don't let it define your tone. You learn to pause, to breathe, and to let silence carry the weight of your confidence. That's when peace becomes your strategy and restraint becomes your victory. The true winner isn't the one who gets the last word, it's the one who keeps their peace, guards their energy, and walks away knowing their self-respect remains untouched. A person who has nothing to prove holds the greatest power in the room. When your worth no longer depends on the approval, praise, or recognition of others, you become unshakable. The moment you stop trying to convince anyone of your value, your energy shifts from needing validation to embodying confidence. That kind of quiet strength can't be faked. It comes from deep inner work, from knowing exactly who you are and no longer seeking permission to be that person. People can sense it, the calm in your voice, the stillness in your demeanor, the way you carry yourself without needing to compete. That presence alone commands respect. Those who constantly try to prove themselves are operating from insecurity, not confidence. They respond to sarcasm with defensiveness, to insults with aggression, because deep down they're afraid of being misunderstood or unseen. But when you've made peace with yourself, when you know your worth isn't up for debate, other people's opinions lose their grip on you. Their sarcasm doesn't sting the same way because it's not touching anything fragile inside you anymore. You don't rise to defend yourself. You simply remain, because truth doesn't need defending. It just needs to be lived. There's a different kind of authority that comes from contentment. You speak less but say more. You listen without absorbing negativity. You're not moved by attention or shaken by disregard. That's what makes people pause when they encounter someone grounded in their identity. They can't manipulate or provoke what's already settled. You become the steady presence in a room full of noise. And it's not arrogance, it's alignment. You know that your purpose doesn't depend on who claps for you or who criticizes you. You're no longer playing to the audience, you're walking in truth. When you reach this place of peace, you no longer chase validation or run from rejection. You understand both are temporary, both are external, and neither defines your essence. The person who has nothing to prove is free from reaction, free from comparison, free from the exhausting need to be understood. That freedom radiates as power. Because real confidence doesn't shout, it settles. It's not about being right, it's about being rooted. And when you live from that rootedness, no sarcasm, insult, or opinion can ever move you from who you truly are. Detachment is not weakness. It's the spiritual alignment of knowing who you are and refusing to be moved by anything less. It's the calm awareness that your peace is not up for negotiation, no matter what kind of energy enters the room. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop clinging. It's the art of loving people without losing yourself in the process. When someone throws sarcasm, judgment, or disrespect your way, detachment allows you to see it clearly without internalizing it. You understand that their behavior belongs to them, not to you. You observe instead of absorb, and that shift in awareness changes everything. True detachment comes from security, not in what others think of you, but in what you already know about yourself. It's a spiritual state that says, I don't need your agreement to walk in my truth. When you're attached to people's validation or understanding, their words can easily shake your peace. But when you're grounded in purpose, you don't take things personally because your value isn't determined by external approval. You begin to understand that not every reaction deserves your energy and not every conflict requires your participation. Detachment allows you to stay present without being pulled into emotional chaos. This kind of strength doesn't come from indifference. It comes from discipline. It's choosing stillness over reaction, understanding over argument, compassion over control. It's when you look at someone's attempt to provoke you, and instead of responding from ego, you respond from awareness. You recognize that the moment you take offense, you give them access to your peace. But when you stay detached, you keep your center no matter how someone tries to move you. That's not weakness. That's mastery. People often confuse detachment with distance, but it's not about withdrawing from life. It's about moving through life with balance. You can be fully engaged yet completely at peace. You can care deeply and still remain unshaken. Detachment allows you to see life from a higher perspective, where emotions serve you instead of control you. And that's where true freedom begins, when you realize you don't have to react to prove you're strong. You just have to stay aligned with who you are, because when your spirit is anchored, no external storm can ever move your peace again. In the end, strength isn't found in how loudly you speak or how sharply you respond. It's found in how deeply you know yourself. The world will test your peace through sarcasm, mockery, and moments designed to provoke you. But those tests aren't meant to break you. They're meant to reveal you. Every time you choose calm over conflict, silence over sarcasm, and composure over chaos, You rise above what was meant to pull you down. You show that true power is not in control of others, but in mastery of self. When you stop reacting to every tone and start responding from wisdom, you shift from survival to sovereignty. You no longer mirror the energy around you. You set the temperature of every room you walk into. Your peace becomes your signature. Your stillness becomes your strength. And that quiet, unshakable confidence begins to speak louder than any defense ever could. So the next time someone tests your calm, remember this: your peace is not up for debate. You are not required to attend every argument you're invited to. You are not obligated to shrink just because someone else feels small. Walk in grace, speak with authority, and stand firm in who you are. Because when you master the art of staying unmoved in the face of noise, you don't just win the moment, you win yourself. And that's the kind of victory no sarcasm, no insult, and no darkness can ever take away.